Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Namaskar. This is Engineer Suraj Singh speaking from Bharat, India on this day, January 14, 2022, Friday, morning around 4 o'clock, 4 a.m. मैं सूरज सिंह भारत इंडिया से बोल रहा हूँ। आज दिनांक जनवरी 14, 2022, शुक्रवार सुबह के 4 बजे। Quality, concrete specs, civil, field engineering, life engineers, AnnexSL, Red, Silver, White Books, SHE, design, construction, methods, contracts, disputes, organizations, communications, coordinations, all field activities in engineering. In engineering field and in particular civil engineering field. Every day I try to submit to you, share with you something you can say. Before going further, let me just introduce again myself. This is my certification, enrollment, and my communication active email ID, and it is here. You can see suraj_engineer at yahoo.co.uk. This is membership based title, statutory title, Chartered Engineer India, and I belong to Institution of Engineers in capacity, FIE, Fellow of Institution of Engineers. Its logo here, and this is enrollment at international level, that is International P Professional Engineer India, INT PE. You can see that here in certificate. It's here certification, and it says this person is certified as International Professional Engineer India in field of civil engineering, and this person is also authorized to use style and title INT PE India, which is valid up to this date, and it's for 5 years. You can see its signing date is 30th September 2020. And then there's another certificate which says this person of Civil Engineering Division is hereby authorized to use the style and title Chartered Engineer India. This according to the institution statute, and that is charter. And here's a file that's quality we have to consider, which is very significant one on which I base my talk. Very important one, and I think you should not ignore it because it is not something imaginative. It's based on reality of life, factual reality of life. And when we say reality of life, this means engineering itself is reality of life. And then this another file which is concrete terminology, ACI, American Concrete Institution, based on which here I have discussed many definitions. You will see on left side I am browsing in all these titles which have gone through, and we can say that these are important ones because we have been doing this, and I think it's very interesting copy of this document. Interesting in a sense that it should be known to all engineers who work on concrete. It's really, I can say, it's something we do not summarize, but it should be because it's related to only one material, and that is that is, you can say, only one material, and that is concrete. You know very well what I am talking of, and it is, you can say, various a lot, and I also sometimes try to overlap our talk, and it goes on like that. I was somewhere on F, I think. It was somewhere on F, and you can say fineness, modulus, finish, etc. All these titles we have been final curing, finishes like this we have gone through, and we can say finish coat, finishing, grinding, likewise fleshing, thread, shad, piece, flint, float, all these. Let's go back to the start of F, and we can say exposed aggregate, finish, exposed glass, extender, extensibility, exterior panel. Actually, I forgot which page it was, and that's only problem. Let's say epoxy grout, entrapped layer, incrustation, let's say incrustation layer, and we go up above that. And endothermic reaction, engineer architect, engineer cement is composition. So we may be more, it is flexural rigidity, flint float. It was somewhere here. Form solution. No, it's not. Well, we will come back to that one and see how it works. Now I'll straight away concentrate on this and close this certificate. First of all, chartering of closing, and I'll close the FI certificate. And now we are on page of quality, which again is a big question mark of as far as I'm concerned. I always try to give you something, I repeat my questions that are very related to quality, and these questions must be considered very seriously. We can't take them for granted. And for example, I say quality in our country, and where does that's my question is where does quality exist? We have to find coordinates of quality. In fact, to be very frank, though there is no coordinate, but if you have to understand something, we have to know. So let us say quality is a unit. Let's consider like this. You got my point. Let's say quality is a unit, and we have to see where does it stay, or a person where does it stay, where to find the address, or where to allow the address, we have to locate it, and that location doesn't exist anywhere, but we have to imagine that it exists somewhere. In that case, we have very questions, and these are, for example, subtitle of this talk is where does quality exist? This title, quality in Bharat India is title. Head of this, quality in Bharat India means our country, Bharat India, and also I am talking about my country, but it includes various other countries as well, which we can't ignore. But now I'm not responsible for those countries. Though we are responsible, everyone is responsible for it, but let's say first we have to check ourselves. Self investigation is very significant. We can't ask others if we don't check ourselves. I can't say, oh, guy, you are not doing good work, but if I am also not doing good work, I have no right to raise a question and a right to ask, why are you not doing this? So first I have to check myself. Quality means self-checking. It's very important item where people do not do this. In fact, they always question others, but they don't check themselves, and that's where problem lies in. If I become my own examiner, I say I'm a student, but I'm also examiner. I answer questions and I check my own questions, and that is where, that's where corrective action is. If you do yourself, it's the best policy. Just like with a self-study, I'm a self-student, say, I study myself. I can learn, there's no other way out to learn if you can learn yourself without aid of guide or teacher or professor, until it's very much required. After having education, you must have habit of self-education. Same way, if you have a habit of self, you have developed that habit of self-education, you have every right to self-examine or self-evaluation, but it should be based on honesty. If I have to improve in my life, I have to improve my knowledge, I have to learn something, I have to be honest to myself, I have to be sincere to myself. That quality is a must. That character, I can say, is a must. Or you can say, I know what's my mistake, but I don't want to improve that, I want to continue on that, I don't want to think about that. Then I can say I'm not a professional. In profession, we say, do something, and before doing, you plan something. This is plan and do are related. Plan and do, and then say, okay, you have done it. You make sure whatever you've done is right, or it's okay. Then I say, okay, I have done it, I want to check it, or I want to review it. And if I find some error or some mistakes, then it's my duty to realize that I have caused this mistake and I have to know reason of that mistake. And if I know reason of that mistake, then I can correct it, and I correct not only for that requirement at that moment, but also for future. It's kind of a minor lesson learned that I made this mistake, I have to correct it. In engineering, we say plan, do, check, and improve. PDCI. Plan, do, check, improve, or you can give whatever abbreviation according to your thinking, it doesn't matter. But what I say in quality means first you be a quality person. If I make myself quality person, I have to be very regular. I must have certain kind of schedule of my working, and I must stick to that. Means you say quality system, I agree with that. Quality system must be there, but not just a system that works. That's important. There are only two ways of dealing with the system. Either if you don't have the system, if you don't have the capacity, or you have capacity, no resources, then you have to system. Either you have your system, it's very difficult in the beginning, that you have your system. Just for purpose of learning or for purpose of advancement, you have to enter some system. And if an opportunity to enter some system, you enter that system, and that system shall give you something. You will learn from that system, from alphabet of the system. You can say, I know what is this system, I've entered this system, I've gone through this system, what are structural arrangements in that system, and then I can come out of that. I know I've gone through that system. Well, when I have experience also, and I enter system, I can say, no, here is an error, I want to rectify it, I will set it right. And there may be many errors, or you want to apply many modifications or amendment to the system. You can do that because you have gone through that system and you want to stay in that system. Or otherwise, if you are not happy with that system, then you have to come out of that system. You are not allowed to do anything that. And then you establish your own system, you can do that. And that's a very important point. When you make your own system, then you have a right and privilege to define yourself what you want to do. Your own system is more important to you, and if you can help work, it's fine. It help works, and it works as such, and the process moves on to deliver you something that is complied with, your own requirement. Because your requirement cannot be foundationless. Your requirement must have certain definitions. It must have some references you have to follow in profession, and your system is related to your work, and that means it's related to profession. So your system is technical, you can say, technically designed, technically oriented, technically structured, and for technical activity. It's not an ordinary system, if you can think so. And it's not political system, it's not society system, it's system based on technical requirement, technical organization. I won't say management, I will say technical organization. Because in your organization there is specific responsibility that you are going to take, and your system is specific, it is customized, pointed to, and there is some focus starting with some origin. That system is a requirement. When I talk of that system, I have only two answers: that either follow someone, or make your someone. Making is very difficult. Making is very difficult because you can't say today, okay, I want to make something, so I start doing that. You can't do that. You must have certain topic, and not only topic you should have, but also you should have, you can say, what is objective. Do you know that? Have you got experience on that? Have you experienced any problems in that? If you have experience, have you solved them? Means question after question after question appears if you want to design some system, and it's also true, it's not easy job. A system, when I say, it's not simply a structure of system, it's knowledge-based system. You can't simply write something and say it's my system. You must have exposure to that one. Sometimes even a person having long experience remains unable to formulate some system, either because one never did that, or one has experience only for name's sake. If you have experience, real experience, engineering experience, and I call engineering experience real experience because Engineering experience depends on facts. Facts. Engineering cannot be done without facts. This is also a fact. Other professions are referred one. Other professions depend on references, depend on reports. But engineering profession is such that is in fact original one, and even if it is a collection of references, this always come from something which relate to factual life or which relate to true statements. Engineering can never be, fiction. Engineering can never be based on fictions. It may be assumptions based, it may be, consideration based, but it cannot be, you cannot be completely hypothetical. It must have certain weight, and that weight is important. When I feel sometimes that people assume irrelevantly, and that has got no meaning and no weightage. Engineering, whichever branch you consider, whatever branch of engineering we consider, whatever branch, that branch is based on life facts, not otherwise. And how many percent of those facts can be realized in your engineering designs or engineering system formation mechanism? It is very important. So we can say, when we ask ourselves or somebody asks one other person, where does quality exist? It's very, it's very annoying question to someone, and it's also very important question for someone. Signals are down, 0, 0, audio and video, both are down. FPS rate is also 11. That is where quality is, It happens. These companies don't care. These companies like Airtel and maybe others, I don't know, they don't care for this. Maybe there is no system. Still, I am not criticizing them. They deserve criticism. And despite criticism, they don't try to improve. And that's why I say, where does quality exist? In that way, to just locate address of quality, we have to raise questions to ourselves. It's not only question of civil engineering, it's question of complete engineering. And if engineering is cleared, it's question on sub-engineering professions, which I call all other professions except medical science. Because medical science is a parallel profession of life. It's for maintenance of life or keeping yourself fit, and also engineering is a profession of life where you have to develop. Without engineering development, without society or world development, we cannot move. And all others, whoever what is, administrative or organizational, these are all secondary one as far as reality is concerned. So there may be many questions about materials, there can be questions about working professionals, there can be questions about equipment and about personnel who have work within that profession, within that branch of engineering or within that sub branches of engineering. Like in engineering we have many sub branches, we have roads, we have buildings, or specialization we call them, we have infrastructure, we have special buildings, institutional buildings, you have irrigation network, you have so much in that. and likewise other engineering branches have different professions, different sub branches, and every branch has every problem, many problem. And if you consider that way, if you list out them, you will find a long list in civil engineering broadly, and every sub branch must have other sub branches like designing, planning, bidding, working out, execution, maintenance. If you consider that, you will find a large population of information from world of engineering. It's really extraordinary, you can say. I'm just talking about very small part of that. But I am talking about concrete because concrete has no address. It has no coordinates. It's available in every sub branch of engineering, in every discipline, because it's a part of development. It's a part of development and is such a flexible material that can be molded to every form. And that's why I'm very much interested, and not only myself, everybody else in profession as well as non-professional world, they can understand what is engineering concrete. When it is used in concrete, to the engineering or applications or development applications, it becomes much more significant than otherwise. I raise questions not because I want to talk again and again. It is to be considered again and again, because if we consider something again and again, we know something again and we have to add it. Likewise, we write something, you start and write something. Then again you go back and check, and then you will find 10% edited. Again you do the same, means if you do 4 or 5 times, you will find that at least 25 to 50% of your original writing is amended. And then after 6 months you do that, you will find something more in that, or delete something out of that. This happens. This means you cannot keep concentration. If you repeat that also, you cannot keep same concentration as it was before. This means mind is dynamic. Our mind is not stand still. Power of mind is never stagnant, and that's where thinking works in. And that's why I stress thinking is a part of engineering, and engineering is a part of thinking. And therefore there are so many titles in this, and starting with quality, I can say quality with concrete specification. This is very much important, and because this covers entire field of engineering and life, that's why these titles are continuous. And then comes your contracts, because contracts are related to development, designs are related to development, and construction related to development. And once you enter the contract, means you must deal with certain disputes also. And all these and all others which are not herein, they relate to communications and coordination. And that's why I want to sequence in, and it's called coordinated title, you can say. A group of headings, a group of terminologies, which you can say enter your life. Like mathematics we enter in life, like engineering sciences we enter into life. We have to push this all considerations, all these titles into our life. So we have to keep coordination or coordinates of all these problems into ourselves. So my question remains as usual. What about major material being concrete structures? It's major material. Why to say? What about this? Just like you said, websites about us, but we are. What is concrete? Question is, why do we need it? And also what about major materials that are often permanently included in structures and buildings everywhere on all projects? This means very general questions that everybody can answer. It's not only that you need engineering for that. No need. And we say, if you can answer these questions, or these very basic questions, we can say, what about engineering material? being used to produce various hundreds parts of goods in manufacturing, because manufacturing is unlimited, processing is unlimited. I'm saying manufacturing, if the processes means something, of course, more powerful than material, material manufacture. If it's a processing, it's in manufacture, it's in, you can say, facilities, plant activities, where you handle fossil fuels, or you handle certain gases. Those processing are unlimited. And also, if you say in construction, that's also a process. So there is no limit, no cover on processing, limit, processing definition, or scope of processing. Then question is, what is provision by our governments, whatever government? Because when all these activities go on, there should be some control on that. Yes, there is technical control, that's right. But some control is required other than that, and that is national control or government control. Government control doesn't mean government authority. No, government control doesn't mean government laws only. This means service to people. And government must make sure that whatever material has developed in its jurisdiction, this must be based on, you can say, quality requirement compliance. It is duty of government to make sure, because these products are to be exported also in many cases. And these in fact impact proceeds of nation. Proceeds, I can say income. Income in motion, not incoming saving. Incoming turnover. That's what I'm saying. Economy means income in turnover. Then we can say, what can be certain reason? What can be certain reason that quality requirement is being ignored by nation as a whole? And also, we have to see what reason does exist that engineers are not able to conduct required role towards quality domain. And again I say, it's not a statement insulting them or alleging upon them. It's that engineers have to investigate themselves. It is first job of investigator. As engineer, one has to investigate itself, and that is very important, because engineer cannot be investigated by others. Either only engineers can investigate engineers, or engineer has to investigate self. And that's also a part of engineering, self-investigation or self-check, you can say self-check. Every time you have to. So we can say, what can be certain reason that quality requirements being ignored, and what reason does exist that engineers are not able to conduct required role towards quality domain, which means self-control, self-examination, and self-investigation and self-correction. And how can quality be controlled and systems worked out for best organization in this regard? Quality controlling is subhead of quality system, and if quality system works smoothly and efficiently, for sure quality control shall be better. This shall be conducted in a better way, in some reliable way, safe way. So question remains, how can quality be controlled and systems worked out for best organization in this regard? And also, what should be role of engineers in all branches of engineering? It's very simple line sentence, but it's having very big meaning. Very big construction. Very big construction is got. Or you see, we have to constitute a lot on this from viewpoint of quality. Quality explanation from that viewpoint. We say, role of engineers in all branches of engineering. There is no limit on this. We can go on talking about this at length. Role of engineers and role of workers in handling instructions in this regard, because engineers and workers are always they remain in same loop. We cannot separate them. Engineers structure is workers and workers control is engineers. And worker controls the workers itself, engineers control engineers itself. Worker is engineer is also a worker, but what I mean to say, workers at physical level. So engineers and workers role are very significant, and quality requirement so difficult we have to think. Is it so difficult that professionals ignore it or they remain under pressure? As far as saying ignoring is concerned, I don't agree with this. If one is an engineer, one cannot ignore anything until it's beyond human control. Quality requirement is very basics. It's very basics because without quality we cannot do anything. It may be even thinking power, but if it doesn't have quality connection with you, or it doesn't have relative quality control, then you cannot say it may work. Then we can say why we digest, can we people digest bad quality in goods? That's another question. Can we people digest bad quality in goods, products and in construction? And if we can digest that one, what reason remains there? What reason forces us to digest bad quality product? Because one end we say we have system of quality organization. If we have a system, then we must know why we do not get products in general. Means whatever product we deal with, all products should be quality oriented or should be produced in a way quality mandates. Then question is again role of government. Means you cannot absolve government as far as material and products are concerned for people of country and world. You cannot say no. Then what should be role of customer and consumer or end user in this relation? And this is objective of this talk. Role of customer or consumer or end user in this regard or in this relation. Ultimately, it's where you can say buffer stop is seen at. Customer or consumer or end user is where some termination comes in. Here use of item starts, use of product starts. Only consumer can tell or consumer can define. It's experience which relates to manufacturer's process, manufacturer's product. And if a consumer is fine with that, whatever consumer knows about that, not everything but to some extent, can say consumer is very important party to define acceptance or rejection of quality that has been proposed by manufacturer or by processor operator. We have to establish quality system, indeed it is, and quality procedures approach while conducting design, planning and prosecution of executions of work. This establishment of quality is very different subject. It depends on, again I want to say, an individual personality and technical information available. Combination of these two is very well defined. How do you do? You have to start with all that. You have to start with all that requirement to see who shall do it. You have to establish quality system. Again, I can say quality procedural approaches while conducting design, planning, and prosecution of execution of works. Who shall do it? That is very different question. Who shall do it? We shall do it. My answer is that. We shall do it. And who are we? We are professionals. No one else. We are professionals. And professionals run professions. And if professionals run profession, then you can say it's not only running, it's only running in the right way. Not showing to that we have run it. We should run it practically. And therefore, it's pragmatism. It's pragmatism of professional engineers or engineers that handle this responsibility. And also, I should say, this responsibility is not only for civil engineers, not only civil engineering, but also all other branches of engineering or other engineering operations must be oriented towards achieving quality objectives. Never it is too late, remember, for development has to go on continuously, by which satisfaction must be obtained while performing engineering activities in organization. Engineering activities never end. Yes, terminology may change from point to point, from time to time, but essence remains same. It's never too late, for development has to go on continuously, by which satisfaction must be obtained while performing engineering activities in organization. Now, controls or management, you can say, that only talks of results. Without heavily or intensively weighing quality approach, and sequential results cannot be relied upon. You cannot simply waste your energy. And here on stocking in, you can't simply waste your energy that's required towards implementation of quality, achievement of quality. Without achieving set quality requirements, no development can be made sustainable, and it cannot be any time durable. You can say we have to talk of results. We have to talk of considering that this result is not for 1 or 2 hours. This is for long hours. It depends. And which are without achieving set quality requirements, no development can be sustainable and durable in long run. And it's often said that civil construction matters. Civil construction matters a lot all over during total development scenario, where civil engineer works as ab initio, you can say first principle starter, and one should be proud of that. I'm a starter. The professional must be strong enough with determination and commitment to give quality as included, as intended to be delivered with product, so that other entrants may for sure follow suit, respecting other disciplinary or disciplines or branches. Engineers have to decide to determine for even forever. We have to determine forever. We have to decide forever. The quality cannot be taken for granted or cannot be compromised with, and that have to work for engineering demands and requirements. We cannot just think ourselves into it. When we deal with others, we deal with people. Of course, we can then say engineers have to decide to determine ever that quality cannot be taken for granted and that have to work for engineering demands and requirements. And if you just take further details of this, which we should, for purpose of everybody's understanding. First essential, I am now talking of something different, very brief talk. First essential is that, and essential is a requirement again, a specific requirement or a mandate. First essential is that civil engineers must care about professional requirements. We must care about professional requirement, and that's, we can say, a change whole scenario. First essential is that you can say civil engineer must care about professional requirements relating to projects where major structures are included permanently, which could be constitution of framing. You can say constitute framing RCC component, which can be constituted as a framing, structural steel components, precasting components, and all other considerable elements that add to structures. For example, remedial actions, modifications. You can say all steel components, precasting components, and all other considerable elements that add to structures. For example, remedial actions. And if structure is taken quality care of, all other components or items are secondary in considerations, but can be taken care of if structure has reliability. If services are also included with structures, additional care must be resorted to for engineering coordination. Because coordination works is kind of specialization job. It's kind of specialization job on structures. It's also true that it's like a specialized job and additional expertise that every engineer does not possess, and no academic branch or subject teacher teaches it. This is learnt only by expression and by involving oneself in multidisciplines. Works without having any second thought. Therefore, it is emphasized that coordination must be adopted as in natural or when I say this is relevant learnt only. If services also include the structures, additional care must be resorted to for engineering coordination, because coordination work is a specialized job on such structures, and it's also true that it's like an additional expertise that every engineer does not possess, and no academic branch or subject teaches it. This is learned only, only by experience and by involving self in designs or knowing, or even somebody knows you, we cannot communicate you. You can ask people. It's emphasized that coordination must be adopted as an essential if quality is required to be affected. If quality is required to be affected, for it affects structures, arrangements from every viewpoint. It's also true that many changes are affected during construction or during production of working designs. We cannot stop at this discussion only. We have to consider every aspect of that in our life in certain form. And we can say, when we think of quality and we think of concrete, we can say that we cover major portion of concrete and our subjects, because ultimately designs are concrete, plannings are whatever we have to do, we have to go through complete detailing of that includable materials from time to time. We have to learn certain terminologies, and we did that also. Fly ash. There are so many terms in this. Free fall, fresh concrete, traditional bolt. I think friction loss, friction pile, frog, fuller curve, we have gone through all this. Go devil, and we have, let's say, start with this bagged forms. Let's go to go devil, gradation, grade. Furring is kind of F here, strip of wood or mat fastened to a wall or other surface to even it. Fuller curve, frog, and Fuller Thompson ideal grading curve. Furring, and now we can say ganged forms. I think we have gone through that also. Gap graded aggregate we gone through. Galenite gone through. Galenite, mineral of malite group, malelite group, Ca2L, LSI, even SiO7 also. Geopolymer, alternative cement, geopolymer versus battery status. Fully charged, I like to put it off for half an hour. Put it off for half an hour for battery's life better. off for half an hour so that it works efficiently. And also, some people complain, I know, that I always use English language during my talks. This is some, see, it's not my concern. Language is not important, but for communication it is important. Now, English, because generally, documents are in English, generally. We have to take into our consideration reality also. Documents are in English and engineering is in English. But I'm not going to speak, I never use very difficult English while interacting with people. And also in my work, I don't use very difficult English, except when you deal with some contractual issues. It was one time, even in contracts, English was very difficult. If you read contracts, construction related contracts of 90s, 80s, you would not be able to understand those. And I have one reference also, like our document Constitution of this country, India, which generally our youth should know. Again, don't think I'm running away from topic. I'm just trying to explain problems here, what problems we have to face. If I consider that, why I'm worried is, my worry is about thinking possessed by youth in current scenario. I just like to know, see, we have this document which we call first law of this nation, and that is Bharat India. Document of first law, and that is Constitution of India. Constitution of India, which is a ruler of this country. Though it's not human being, it's a written document, but it defines power, or you can say in our terms, it's a charter for people, public charter it is. Charter of nation it is. And this is by our own people. It's not given to us by anyone. It's our own contemplatory document. Long-term contemplation was conducted. Informations were recovered or were withdrawn, or were, you can say, referred from international documentations. And then we got one permanent document that is known as Constitution of our country, Bharat, India. If you go through that document in its original form, it is in English, there is no doubt. But when you go through this document, you shall find that this is not ordinary English. Not at all. This is different kind of English, but important and significant. And I don't say that only those people who deal with law, they can understand this. I don't agree with that. It is very ordinary, very normal, very communicative document, which after studying, having some knowledge of English, we can understand. And now it is like that, if you don't have even knowledge of English, you can use translated version of this document into your own language. Particularly, Hindi is also equivalent to this document, that script of Hindi. But I find that Hindi is more difficult there to understand rather than directly understanding English. If this document is given to youth or whosoever citizen, people do not study it properly. They think this is not my job, this only advocate or lawyer can understand it. And I think there is nothing as such. You cannot read this document. This is very simple. It only tells about your incorporation or your contribution to this country. That boy or girl could not understand this. So it's very difficult. I can't understand this English. Not because that guy could not understand, I understand that boy or the girl did not have any interest in such studies. I think that's the reason. What I'm saying is, we have to take interest. I'm not saying I have to be master of knowing that document. I should know which belongs to me. I mean, there's some information which is legal. We should know that. It makes a difference. But it depends on your individual interest. If that interest is live towards this document, certainly one shall study this document thoroughly. That's main fact. My only emphasis before also, and it is prefabricated panels joined to make much larger units. This can be 9 by 15 meter for convenience in erecting, stripping and reusing usually braced with walls, wheels, strong back or special lifting hardware. This is, actually panels we are talking of, form of panels, which should be prefabricated, duly jointed to make much larger units, and size maybe 9 by 15 meter, that length, for convenience in erecting, stripping and reusing. There is a gap graded aggregate. We know you studied that one yesterday. Aggregate graded so that portion of aggregate retained on specified intermediate is substantially absent. And galenite, mineral metallic group, galenite, CaL, LSI7, and malachite and benwite. Geopolymer, it's an alternative cement product, geopolymer. I just blow it up further. So this one, geopolymer, an alternative cement produced from aluminum silicate precursors that form non-hydrated cementitious reaction produced by alkali activation. Very important terminology. It is geopolymer. Geopolymer. It is a cement. It's also kind of cement produced from aluminosilicate. This terminology maybe we have forgotten about cement. That an alternative cement produced from aluminosilicate precursors that form non-hydrated cementitious reaction, produced by alkali activation, non-hydrated cementitious reaction. You can say, again I say, geopolymer. It is an alternative cement produced from aluminosilicate precursors that form non-hydrated cementitious reaction, non-hydrated cementitious reaction products by alkali activation, alkali inorganic polymers to form large one. Geopolymerization is a spontaneous reaction that is a spontaneous reaction that results in bonding of smaller inorganic polymers to form large ones. My God, these signals really play with me. I don't know why this play with me. I think these are my not good well wishers. They're not my well wishers. Geopolymerization, as I said, geopolymer, and that's alkali based activation, and this is geopolymerization, that is spontaneous reaction. It's a spontaneous reaction that results in bonding of smaller inorganic polymers, smaller inorganic polymers to form large ones. Geopolymer. So we define geopolymer as alternative cement product, that is geopolymer, and that is, you can say, from aluminosilicate precursors that form non-hydrated cementitious reaction products by alkali activation. And geopolymerization is a spontaneous reaction that results in bonding of small inorganic polymers to form larger ones. Gilmore needle, a device used in determining the time of setting of hydraulic cement. That is a Gilmore needle, which can say device used in determining time of setting of hydraulic cement. And girder is a large beam, usually horizontal, that serves as main structural member and glass transition temperature. Glass transition temperature says midpoint of temperature, mid point of temperature range over which an amorphous material such as glass or high polymer changes from a brittle vitreous state to a plastic state. Glass transition temperature is defined here. Glass transition temperature. Midpoint, there's a temperature range, and it says midpoint of a temperature range over which amorphous material like a glass, such as glass or high polymer, changes from a brittle vitreous state to or from a plastic state. Says what? Brittle changes from to a brittle vitreous state to plastic state. So I can define again. that is, let's say, glass transition temperature, I would say again, midpoint of temperature range over which amorphous material changes glass of high power, high polymer, high polymer changes from brittle vitreous state to plastic state. Go devil, a ball of rolled up burlap or a specially device fit into and end of pipeline and forced through pipe by water pressure to claim pipeline or device used with premise concrete operation. Flash setting, that's grabbing, and also grading is grabbing, and quantities. So we got this point about glass transition temperature, range of temperature range over which an amorphous material like glass or high polymer changes from from zero to a brittle vitreous state to form plastic state. Go devil a ball, as I explained to you, and graph setting is flash setting, and gradation is same. Then we come to graph settings happen, flash setting and gradation. Now what's grade? Sometimes maybe I repeat this for purpose of additional explanation, because generally we forget all these sometimes in life, and it's better to refresh every time. If you have same information or you have more information than previously it was available, you can say you have to convert your life into session of learning, not debate but learning. And it can be written based, or it can be spoken. Learning has every procedure. That much you should realize. That's what you can say is realized. So we might say grading standard sand, we have gone through that. Graph setting, gradation, grade. Now grade is it's also grade slab, can say grade beam. Prepared surface which concrete slab is cast, that's also grade. Process of preparing is plain surface of similar material, granular material or soil on which cast is grade slab, it's called grade slab. We can say grade beam, reinforced concrete beam, RCC beam, usually at ground level, that strengthens or stiffens foundation or support overlying. Then we have gradient, rate of change to variable over a distance. We have grade slab, grade beam, and grade beam is same. A reinforced concrete beam, usually at ground level, that strengthens or stiffens functioning or supporting over construction. So we have grade beam And we have grade strip, usually a thin strip of wood tracked to inside surface of forms at elevation to which top of concrete lift is to rise, either at construction job or top of structure. So we know what is a grade strip, usually a thin strip of wood. We know a kind of bead, you simply say thin strip of wood tacked to inside surface of forms at elevation to which top of concrete lift is to rise, either at a construction joint or top of structure. We have graded standard sand self and gradient rate of change of variable over a distance. We have here gradient rate of change in a variable over a distance, and grading is distribution of particles of granular material among various sizes. That's grading. You want to grade some material, sand or aggregate, or else you have to know particle sizes. Distribution of particle size of particle of you can say distribution of particles of granular material and among various sizes. Graphical, you can say grading curve, graphical representations, representation. We have here grade strip we have done, gradient we have done, grading we have done distribution of particle of granular material among various sizes, and grading curve is a graphical representation of properties, or we can say graphical representation of proportions of different particle sizes. Grading curve is a representation of proportions of different sizes, particle sizes in a granular material obtained by plotting cumulative or individual areas. Well, we have to see grading curve, a graphical representation of proportions of different particle size in the granular material obtained by plotting cumulative or individual percentages of material passing through sleeves in which aperture sizes forming unit size. Granularic concrete. Granularic concrete we can say concrete suitable for use as a wearing surface. Property of concrete is as a granularic finish, granularic concrete for use in wearing surface finish or to floors, wearing surface finish to floors, made with especially selected aggregate of suitable hardness, surface texture and particle shape. Concrete suitable for use as wearing surface, finish to floors, made with specially selected aggregates of suitable hardness, Then we go to granitic finish, as I said. It says granitic concrete. Again, I say concrete suitable for use as a wearing surface, finish to floors, made with specially selected aggregate of suitable hardness, surface texture, and particle size, particle shape. And granitic finish is surface layer of granitic concrete that may be laid on a base of either fresh or hardened concrete. A surface layer of granitic concrete, a surface layer of granitic concrete that may be laid on a base of either fresh or hardened concrete. Granulated blast furnace slag, we have already seen that. Now gravel, we'll say gravel. So it's very simple terms sometimes, but we have to consider them in effect. That's important. It's very cold here. I don't know what to sit. Very cold here. Let me wear my shoes, it's better. I'm feeling cold from my legs. I'm feeling cold from my feet. I don't know why. The season height. I think so. At least you have to protect yourself. I don't want to fall in hands of weather. Because it's very dangerous. We should not take risk actually. So I just wore my shoes for better controls. Let us be a little comfortable. Okay, sorry gentlemen, it's weather. So what I say, gravel definition, though it's not very new, but when we refresh, we have to reference everything. We say gravel, and gravel, it says retained on 4.75 mm. Gravel says retained on 4.75 mm sieve and resulting either from natural disintegration of abrasion of rock or processing of weakly bound conglomerate. Gravel is well defined here. It says aggregate retained on 4.75 mm number 4 sieve and retained on 4.75 mind it 4.75 mm sieve and resulting either from natural disintegration and abrasion of rock or processing of weakly bound conglomerate. Green concrete that has undergone final setting but not hardened appreciably, and grid foundation is a combined footing formed by intersecting continuous footings loaded at intersection points and covering much total area within outer limits of assembly. Graded beam is actually very good design if you want to do economical foundations and durable foundations. It's really, if you connect all columns together at foundation level by beams, major beams we may say like deep beams, in that case there is no requirement of spread foundations. These itself act as step foundations. And remember, I'm not talking plinth beam, I'm not talking grade beam, I'm talking structural beams, and where it's naming as grade foundation. and this means all foundations are connected together in form of beams, crossway, both way, and this can result in some kind of horizontal framing for vertical and horizontal loadings. So that is grid foundation. It's very important one. I used to call it beam footing or beam foundations, but grid is also no problem because grids are on both axes, x-axis and y-axis. You have beam on x-axis, all beams connecting all columns, and you have all beams on y-axis connecting all columns. So it's called grid foundation, x-axis and y-axis foundations. And then we go to grinding, which is intentional removal of a visually apparent amount of surface paste to create a profile of surface, and that's called grinding of lattice, you may say. Intentional removal of a visually apparent amount of surface paste to create a profile on surface, and grinding aids material used to expedite process of grinding by eliminating ball coating, dispersing finely ground product, or both. Signals problem. Grinding aids materials used to expedite process of grinding by eliminating ball coating and ball coating, dispersing finely ground product, or both. Grinding medium. A hard free moving charge in a ball or tube mill to reduce particle size of introduced materials by attrition or impact, and that's the grinding medium. A hard free moving charge or in a ball, a hard free moving charge in a ball or tube mill to reduce particle size of introduced materials by attrition or impact. Grizzly, a simple stationary screen or series of equally spaced parallel bars. A simple stationary screen or series of equally spaced parallel bars set to at an angle to remove oversized particles in processing aggregate or other materials. And grog is burned refractory material, usually calcined clay or crushed brick pads. Grog, G-R-O-G, is something new. Groove joint, control joints and groove tool used to form grooves or weakened plane joints in a concrete slab before final setting to control crack location or provide patterns. So groover. And ground wire, small gauge high strength steel wire used to establish line and grade as in shotcrete work. So it's called alignment wire or screed wire. So it's ground wire, small gauge high strength steel wire used to line and grade as in shotcrete work. Granulated blast furnace slag, granulated blast furnace slag, usually we call it GBS. It's slag cement, and grout is a mixture of cementitious material and water or the binding mediums with fine aggregate, neat cement grout and sanded grout. And then there's a grout slope, natural slope of fluid grout, injected into preplaced aggregate concrete. Grout slope, natural slope of fluid grout injected into preplaced aggregate concrete. Grouted masonry composed of early hollow units wherein cells are filled with grout of multiple whites where space between whites are filled with grout. Grouted aggregate concrete. Grouted aggregate concrete, preplaced aggregate concrete, and grouting. Grouting is process of filling grout A gun is shotcrete metal delivery equipment, a pressure cylinder used to propel freshly mixed concrete pneumatically, and gun finishes undisturbed final layer of shotcrete is applied from nozzle without hand finishing as gun finishing. Gunite, a proprietary term for shotcrete, and gunmen, workers on shotcrete crew who operates delivery equipment, and gunning is act of applying dry mix is shotcrete. Gunning, act of applying dry mix shotcrete. Gypsum, a metal having a composition calcium sulfate dihydrate, and that is CaSO4. Dihydrate is 2H2O. So this is mineral having composition calcium sulfate dihydrate. It is dihydrate, the hydrate, and gypsum plaster made with plaster of Paris, and hairline crack concrete surface crack with a width so small as to be barely perceptible. Hairpin is wedge used to tighten some types of fair, sometimes form ties. As hairpin, wedge used to tighten some types of form ties. A hairpin shaped anchor set in place before concrete reaches initial setting. A light hairpin shaped reinforcing bar used for shear reinforcement in beams. Tie reinforcement in columns, or preferably column sheet shear heads. A ham tip, a flare shotcrete nozzle having a large diameter at mid, you can say, what's that? Hardener. Ham tip, a flared shotcrete having a large diameter at midpoint, then at either inlet outlet. Ham tip shotcrete nozzle having a large diameter at midpoint, then at either an inlet or outlet. Designated premixing tip, a hanger device used to suspend one object from another one, and hard burn lime, product of heating limestone to temperature sufficient to change calcium carbonate to calcium oxide, which can undergo expansion when it slowly reacts with it, and hardened concrete that has developed sufficient strength to serve a defined purpose or resist stipulated loading without failure. And hardener, a chemical including certain fluorosilicates or sodium silicate applied to concrete floors to reduce wear and dusting, in a two-component adhesive or coating chemical component that causes resin component to cure. So I think these were all previously also done, but I'm just doing a refreshing study for a couple of minutes so that we can understand very well what we did. And here is gain of strength and other properties of cementitious mixtures. Hardening, gain of strength and other properties of cementitious mixture as a result of hydration after final setting. And also Hardy cross method is a moment distribution method. We know that, we have gone through this in theory of structures. And harp tendons, draft tendons, and harsh mixture. A concrete mixture that lacks desired workability, harsh mixture. A mixture that concrete mixture that lacks desired workability due to deficiency of mortar or aggregate fines. And also haunch, a deepened portion of a beam in vicinity of support, and haunch, that is a hawk, tool used by plasters to hold, carry plaster, mortar, generally a flat piece of wood or metal approximately 0.25 to 0.3 meters square with a wooden handle centered and fixed to underside, and also it's called hardened head of a separate piece of steel of whatever shape, firmly attached to end of a bar or a protuberance of bar sulfate, and used to incoil steel, introducing bars in concrete and forcing bars in concrete, and hired head anchorage capacity, maximum force that can be transmitted from head of a bar to surrounding concrete. Head bearing area of head projected onto plane orthogonal to longitudinal axis of bar, axis of head projected onto plane orthogonal to longitudinal axis of bar minus bar cross-sectional area representing contact surface. We have to see head bearing area, that's okay. Then we can repeat it, area of head projected onto a plane orthogonal to longitudinal axis of bar minus bar cross-sectional area representing contact surface between head and concrete where bar tensile force is transferred through compression stress and headed bar a steel reinforcing bar that has steel heads on one or both ends with purpose of anchoring bar in concrete and header a masonry unit that laid flat, a masonry unit laid flat with its or with greatest dimension in ordinary concrete. We have header, as we said before, masonry unit. The masonry unit laid flat with its greatest dimension at right angle to face of wall. It's very simple and it depends on, well, you can say where unit is only the depth of face white is known as false header. Now, head of hydration, heatable by chemical reaction with water, difference between heat of solution of dry cement and that of partially hydrated cement. Heat of solution. Heat of solution is heat evolved or absorbed when a substance is dissolved in solvent. Heat evolved or absorbed. Heat deflection temperature. Temperature at which a plastic metal has an arbitrary deflection. Temperature at which a plastic metal has an arbitrary deflection when subject to ordinary arbitrary load and test conditions is an indication of glass transition temperature. Heat deflection temperature at which plastic metal has an arbitrary deflection and subject to an arbitrary load and test condition. This is now indication of glass transition temperature. Heating rate is expressed in degrees per hour, which temperature is raised to desired maximum temperature. Heating rate expressed in degree per hour at which temperature is raised to desired maximum temperature. Heavy concrete, high density concrete and heavy media separation, a method in which a liquid or suspension of given specific gravity is used to separate particles into a portion lighter than those that float and a portion heavier than those that sink. So heavy concrete, heavy media separation, method in which liquid or suspension is given specific gravity. It's used to separate particles into a portion lighter than that float, and a portion heavier than those who sink. Heavy weight aggregate. Heavy media separation is also a very important point. We separate this on a method in which a liquid suspension of a given specific gravity is used to separate particles into a portion slightly doubtful. You say heavyweight concrete, high density concrete, and helical reinforcement, spiral reinforcement. Hematite, also we say Fe2O3 uses aggregate high density concrete. We discussed it this year. Fe2O3, Fe2 is hematite we discussed. Use has aggregate in high density concrete, and in finely divided form as red pigment in colored concrete. Hematite, Fe2O3 iron oxide also is in colored concrete. Hemidihydrate, a hydrate containing 1/2 molecule of water, 1/2 molecule of water to 1 molecule of compound. That is, hemihydrate, that is mineral oxide Fe2O3 used as aggregate in high density concrete. And we are talking at hemihydrate, hydrate containing 1/2 molecule of water to 1 molecule of compound, partially dehydrated gypsum, also known as plaster of Paris, CSO4 half H2O. See also basonite and plaster of Paris, and hesitation setting, false setting, and you can say Hessian is burlap and high aluminum cement, high aluminum cement, calcium, aluminum, you can say high aluminum cement, calcium aluminate cement, and high density concrete, concrete of substantially higher density than that made using normal density aggregate. Normal density aggregate, high density concrete, substantially higher than that of made using normal density aggregate, usually obtained by use of high density aggregates and used specially for radiation shielding, and a high discharge mixer, higher discharge. We have here high density concrete and high discharge mixture. We can say high discharge mixture, high density, high inclined axis mixture. So this high discharge mixture, higher strength cement, Portland cement, are characterized by attaining a given level of strength in water or concrete earlier than those normal implied. Then we can say higher strength concrete, and now we have high fineness cement. High fineness cement. That is high fineness cement. Percent of valence is 58% is still there, no problem. We say high fineness cement, a hydrated cement of substantially high specific surface. It is high early strength concrete and high fineness cement, a hydraulic cement of substantially higher specific surface and substantially smaller mean particle diameter than typical for products of similar composition produced by additional grinding or by scrapping of particle size. Okay, high fineness cement, high lift grouting, a technique in masonry wall construction in which grouting operation is delayed until wall has been laid up to full story height. That is high lift grouting and high performance concrete. Concrete meeting special combinations of performance and uniformity requirements that cannot even We have high lifting outer high performance concrete, concrete meeting special combinations of performance and uniformity requirements that cannot always be achieved routinely using conventional constituents and normal mixing, placing and curing practices. You can say high performance concrete. This means spatial combinations of performance and uniformity. What is then we can say high pressure steam. A high performance concrete was defined concrete meeting special combinations of performance and uniformity requirements that cannot always be achieved routinely using conventional constituents and normal mixing, placing and crushing concrete areas. We have high range water reducing admixture and high pressure steam curing. We said in autoclaving, that is high pressure steam curing, and we have here high range water reducing admixture, water reducing admixture capable of producing large water reduction in general flowability without causing undue set retarders or entertaining defeating of yes. So it is high pressure steam curing. We talked of high range water reducing. We talked of water reducers, water reducing admixtures capable of producing large water reduction or great flowability without causing undue set intersection. Then here is the high-strength concrete that has a specified compressive strength for design of 55 MPa or greater. So high-strength concrete is 55 MPa or greater. High-strength reinforcement is high-steel. High-strength steel is steel with a high yield point. Steel with a high yield point per high strength concrete is concrete that has a specified compressive strength beyond 155 MPa and high strength reinforcement, high strength steel, high stress strength, high stress strength. Reinforcement, high strength steel and high strength steel is steel with high yield point. In case of reinforcement, it is 414 MPa and greater. High temperature steam curing means we have already seen auto curing, and hot is V-shaped trough or a tray. V-shaped trough, tray. All right, now say hold. Now it's a high temperature steam curing, which I said that is about article V. And hard is a V-shaped trough tray supported by pole handle that is bore on carrier's shoulder for carrying small quantities of brick, mortar, or small load cell hard V-shaped trough or a V-shaped trough tray supported by a can say supported by pole handle, a V-shaped trough of supported by pole handle that is borne to carrier ambassador and now we have here you can say hold down bolt, anchor bolt provided near ends of shear wall. Anchor bolts we are somewhere there. Anchor bolts provided near end of shear wall for transferring border member loads from shear wall to foundation. And hollow unit masonry consisting of either entirely or partially hollow masonry unit and in mortar. Honeycomb we discussed why it's left in concrete between coarse aggregate due to inadequate consolidation or compaction, and that can be void. It can be honeycomb and hook, a band in end of reinforcing ball. Hooke's law we did, hooked bar we did. Hook reinforcement is a Hooke's law says the law. This Hooke's law is for strain within the limit. That strain is proportional to stress producing it. Hook bar, reinforcing bar with end bent into hook to provide anchorage, and hook reinforcement close the continuously wound each having look meaning stress and now here is you can say honeycomb. We have gone through Hooke's law, hoop iron horizontal shoring, and we have to go to horizontal shaft mixer, a hot cement, hot fish. We've gone through all this, and now we go to hydraulics. Now we go to, let's say, hydraulic concrete structures. Hydraulic concrete structures such as dams, spillways, and bridges, abutments designed to resist erosion caused by cavitation. By cavitation. We can say hydraulic concrete structures, such as dams, spillways, and badge abutments resist designed to resist erosion caused by cavitation, abrasion, or chemical reactions. Hydraulic hydrated lime. Hydraulic hydrated lime, hydrated dry cementous product obtained by calcining a limestone containing silica alumina to temperature shard of nuclear incipient, you can say incipient fusion, so that's to form sufficient free calcium oxide to permit hydration and to at same time. Alright, now we go further to, that is hydraulic cement grout. A grout is a mixture of hydraulic cement, aggregate water, and possibly admixture. Hydromix nozzle, a shotcrete nozzle, shotcrete hose nozzle configuration used in place of pre-tempering. Okay, now let's move to that. Hydraulic concrete structures, hydraulic hydrated lime, hydraulic cement grout, hydromix nozzle, hydromix. We have gone through all this, and we have to go to hydromix nozzle. We have to go to ignition loss. We know Filamentite mineral term Red Fe, one that is pure or impure from is commonly used in aggregate of high density concrete. It's important term and it's, illuminate, we can say here in this is, titanate Fe3 that is pure impure form is commonly used as aggregate of high density concrete. Illuminate. Impact hammer, rebound hammer and bending slow consistency of shotcrete mixture containing maximum amount of water such that product shall not flow slack, impending slough shall not flow sag after placement. And inclined axis mixer, transit mixer type a truck with a revolving drum that rotates about an axis inclined to bed of truck chases and incrustation crust of coating generally hard enough formed on surface of concrete or masonry construction on a aggregate particle incrustation. Indented wire having machine made surface indentations intended to improve bond depending on type of wire. Let me put again my this battery on because it is internet and hold on. So here is what I mean. So indented wire, as I explained before, also I'm just repeating, wire having machine made surface indentations intended to improve bond depending on type of wire used for either concrete reinforcement or pre-tensioning tendons. And initial curing means deliberate action taken between placement and finishing of concrete to reduce loss of water from surface of concrete. And initial pre-stress is pre-stress tensioning, pre-stressing, force pre-stressing stress applied to concrete at time of stressing. An initial setting a degree of stiffening of cementitious mixture less than final set. Generally stated as an empirical value indicating time required for cementitious mixture to stiffen sufficient to resist to an established degree penetration of weighted test device. Initial setting a degree of stiffening of cementitious mixture less than final set. Generally stated as an empirical value indicating time required for cementitious mixture to stiffen sufficiently to resist to an established degree penetration of weighted test device. Initial setting time required for freshly mixed cement paste, mortar or concrete to achieve initial setting and initial stress occurring in pre-stress concrete members before any losses occur. Insert anything other than reinforcing steel or whatever other than reinforcing steel that's certainly positioned within concrete from permanent embedment in hardened concrete, cast on site and insoluble residue, portion of cement or aggregate that's not soluble in dilute hydrochloric acid of stated concentration. And insulating concrete is concrete having low thermal conductivity. Insulating concrete is low thermal conductivity or lightweight concrete, low density concrete, like foam concrete. Insulating concrete, call it an internal curing, is process by which hydration of cement continues because of availability of internal water. That's not part of mixing water. Internal curing process by which hydration of cement occurs or cement continues because of availability of internal water. That's not part of mixing water. And internal vibration. Inverted L beam, a beam having cross section in shape of inverted L. Inverted T beam having capital T. I section beam cross section of top and bottom flanges connected by vertical web. Isolation joint, separation between adjacent sections of concrete structures to allow relative movement in three directions and through which all bonded reinforcement is interrupted. You can say insoluble residue. Internal curing will look into that. Jacking device used to, we have come to J now. Okay, jacking device, so that means internal curing. Also important point here we have to see. It's sometimes important to think of that, I have to just see internal curing. It's an important one. Internal curing process, this term is not used. Internal curing concrete, you can say it's something. Internal curing is a relatively recent technique that has been developed to prolong cement hydration by providing internal water reservoirs in a concrete mixture. Internal water reservoirs in a concrete mixture that do not adversely affect concrete mixture's fresh or hardened physical properties. Internal curing is a relatively recent technique that has been developed to prolong cement hydration by providing internal water reservoirs in a concrete mixture, a concrete mixture that does not adversely affect concrete mixture pressures. What does it mean? That internal curing helps concrete realize the maximum potential in a simple, economical, and sustainable way, and I see improves hydration. It is lecture. Let's say, let me just note this. It's internal curing. Your access to the site has been limited. Site owners access to the service has been limited. So we have been blocked by another context only with something different. It is site is not opening. So we say internal curing with lightweight aggregate, precast.org, internal curing and overview, science direct topics, that's sciencedirect.com, where it says internal curing, it says is something different. Let's see, I can open it, I don't know. Internal curing of low water cement concrete shall be increasingly used for two reasons. It provides some water to enable hydration of supplementary cementitious material, and it mitigates the development of orthogenous shrinkage in low water cement concrete. Again, internal curing of water cement concrete, of low water cement concrete, shall be increasingly useful for two reasons. It provides some water to enable hydration of supplementary cement material, and it mitigates development of orthogenous shrinkage of water cement ratio, and we may say suitability of concrete is recycled like that, doesn't matter. And now mix, what is that? Let's say conclusion of all the very high positive water percent, because in accordance with review analysis, something not that one. Lightweight aggregate, okay, let's go somewhere else. It's not finding what's doing here. Sometimes I thought something to say here. Benefits case study using internal curing of concrete. Internal curing is a potentially high, very promising tool in providing additional moisture in concrete. Internal curing, and that's a PDF for internal curing concrete form. Let us see what it says. Seeing this long back. Internal curing from inside outside. Webinar abstract. I don't know why it's information not available. Internal curing concrete from inside outside. AC webinar. Was objective actually. Let's say identify why internal curing may be needed, describe how internal curing works, describe mixture proportioning procedures, as well. This will be in definition. Okay, internal curing, a process by which hydration of cement continues because of availability of internal water. That's not part of mixing water. And curing internal is supplying water throughout a freshly placed cementitious mixture. Supplying water throughout a freshly placed cementitious mixture using reservoirs via pre-wetted lightweight aggregate. Pre-wetted light aggregates that readily release water as needed for hydration or to replace moisture loss through evaporation or salt destruction. You can say why internal curing, describe how internal curing works, describe mixture proportion procedure to incorporate internal curing into concrete mixture, distinguish additional benefits of that. Internal curing may provide beyond crack reduction. Why do we need internal curing? In practice, internal curing is being used mainly to reduce early age cracking. Internal curing is being used mainly to reduce early age cracking by maintaining a high relative humidity within high rating cement paste. This can be particularly important in lower water cement Mix less than equal to 0.4 concretes when capillary pores. Deeper collate within a few days. If your concrete isn't cracking at early stages, you may not need internal curing. So examples of important early age curing is, let us say cement. Identify internal curing may be needed. Describe how internal curing works. Describe mixer proportion procedures to incorporate. Okay, this is all right. This is something. It says question, how does IC work? Answer is IC distributes. IC or internal curing distributes extra curing water uniformly throughout entire 3D concrete microstructure so that it's more readily available to maintain saturation of cement paste during hydration, avoid cell desiccation and reducing autogenous shrinkage and cracking. During IC, water is drawn from water reservoir into surrounding hydration cement paste. Internal curing is not substitute for external curing. Internal curing is not substitute for external curing. Minimum evaporation and moisture loss must be prevented using conventional external measures. A brief history of IC. Basic premises of internal curing were first organized in 1957. Proceedings of World Conference on Prestressed Concrete. So, a brief discussion from ICC, that is chemical shrinkage, and internal volume reduction, that is a result of the fact that absolute volume of hydration products is less than that of reactants. Cement and water can be in order of 10% self-desiccation and autogenous shrinkage. Examples of chemical shrinkage, let's go back somewhere else, it's not giving something. Internal curing of concrete, internal curing, and then what's that? Internal curing of National Concrete Pavement Technology, cptech.org, internal curing agents in concrete. I may say let's see what the YouTube says. Maybe something is only 6 minutes. Let's go to that. Internal curing. You might not see this, but we can at least have voice there. You can say. Says.
कंक्रीट रेसिड्यू निकलेंगे बस एक स्प्रे से। पेश करते हैं सीमेंट कंक्रीट रेसिड्यू रिमूवर स्प्रे। इसे यूज करना बहुत ही आसान है।
Expanded Shale Clay and Slate Institute, Rotary Kilns Structurally Lightweight Aggregate, Internal Cure Concrete, Part 1, Lightweight Aggregate Preparation.
This is Bridge 157 in LaPorte County, Indiana, and it's about to endure its first winter. Here in northern Indiana, that means that it will be exposed to cold temperatures well below freezing, it will be blanketed in ice, and it will be doused in harsh chemical de-icers such as calcium chloride. Any crack in the surface of this bridge offers those de-icers a chance to seep in and corrode the steel reinforcement, or for water to leak in and freeze, increasing the size and severity of the crack. However, Bridge 157 has a significant advantage going into the winter. It was internally cured.
Internal curing significantly minimizes permeability, chloride water penetration.
So, what exactly is internal curing, and how do we make it? The American Concrete Institute defines internal curing as a process by which the hydration of cement continues because of the availability of internal water that is not part of the mixing water. In this illustration, we see a curing comparison of plain concrete to internally cured concrete. You can see the plain concrete is completely dependent on surface curing, which only penetrates the concrete surface by a few millimeters, whereas the concrete with the pre-wetted, expanded shale, clay, or slate lightweight aggregate provides water internally, which is distributed throughout the concrete matrix. Internal curing water is hidden within the lightweight aggregate and begins to release at exactly the right time, which is immediately after the time of set. It continues the hydration process, helps prevent shrinkage and microcracking, and significantly extends the life of the concrete.
Hi, my name is Mitch Lawrence, and I'm a plant manager here for Ozinga Ready Mix Concrete in Plymouth, Indiana. We're preparing for our third of 5 internal curing pours, so let me show you some of the things that we're doing to get ready.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to show you, but just listen to what's saying.
Any aggregate used for internal curing must meet the proper ASTM guidelines. Here at the bashing facility, we've created our stockpile in such a way so that it can be uniformly wetted, and we've stored it on a sloped surface so that it can drain properly. We will maintain even moisturization uniformly and continuously over the pile, turning the aggregate as needed to prevent moisture variation.
It is important to note the water inside the lightweight aggregate is not part of the mixed water and does not affect the water-cement ratio. If a steady rain of comparable intensity occurs, turn off the sprinkler system until the rain ceases. At the end of the wetting period, or after a rain event, allow a minimum of 15 hours of drain time. Longer drain times will reduce the surface moisture and improve handling of the fine lightweight aggregate. While draining, the stockpile may be covered with a non-absorbent material, such as plastic. On this job, we are using a fine lightweight aggregate gradation, a number 4x0. An intermediate gradation can also be used effectively. Consult with your local expanded shale, clay, or slate producer for assistance. We are now ready to sample and test the material to determine the aggregate's moisture content or its absorption percentage. This is important to know so we can get the right amount of lightweight aggregate and internal curing water into the mix. So first, we will begin by extracting a sample of the drain material for testing. Here you see a sample of the drain material the technicians will be using for testing. Before the test samples are taken, the pile is turned or mixed a couple of times. Is another way to find the SSD weight. Finding the oven dry weight can be done by cooking the aggregate on a hot plate. Moisture correction. The aggregate's absorption percentage is used to help calculate.
Alright, we just try to see if we can get something. We don't get application until curing. This is application until curing of concrete, and this is a method of internal curing water calculation of concrete. Properties and internal curing of concrete containing internal curing concrete, novel micro papers on concrete. There's nothing that I can show you here. Actually, just we have to understand that. I try to understand that. We just try to give whatever is possible here. And this internal curing of concrete totally cooperation, and well, leave it behind. We'll go back to our own method of talking. Say, so I was talking of. Now we go back to our own paper, and that's here. To this, and we go back to this, and we can say that. Also, we can say that this, jacking device. Now, I just tried to explain what we could get somewhere, but no problem. It's all, gradually we can learn. Now it's term of J. We start with jacking device. Jacking device, you can say, device used to stress tendons for pre-stressed concrete. Device for raising a vertical slip form. Slip form, you can say, for example, you're casting some big structure like LNG tank, which is say about 50 meters high and 80 meters diameter, having 800 mm thick walls. A continuous concrete is required on that for the jacking device is used, and that device is used for a quick form, you can say, continuous jumping of forms, you can say. So jacking force is pre-stressed concrete. In pre-stressed concrete, temporary force exerted by a device that introduces tension into tendons. Jacking force is pre-stressing concrete, temporary force exerted by a device that introduces tension into tendons, and jacking stress. Maximum stress occurring in pre-stressed tendon during test stressing. Maximum stress occurring in pre-stressed tendons during stressing. Jaw crusher, a machine having two inclined jaws. A machine having two inclined jaws, one or both being actuated by a reciprocating motion so that charge is repeated nipped between jaws. Jitterbug, a great tamper for pushing coarse aggregate slightly below surface of a slab to facilitate finishing. Jitterbug, a great GRAT tamper for pushing coarse aggregate slightly below surface of a slab to facilitate finishing. Joint, a physical separation in a concrete system whether precast or cast in situ or cast in place, including cracks if intentionally made to occur at specified locations, region where structural member intersects, and joint filler, compressible material used to fill a joint to prevent infiltration of debris, and provide support for sealant applied to joint. Joint filler, a compressible material used to fill a joint to prevent infiltration of debris and provide support for sealants applied to joint. Joint sealant, compressible material used to exclude water, compressed material used to exclude water and solid foreign materials from joint. Joint spall is spall adjacent to joint. Jointed details, a connection where bending stiffness differs. Jointed details, a connection where bending stiffness differs from that of member and requires special design to collect, transfer and redistribute forces from one member to another through connections. Jointed details, a connection where bending stiffness differs from that of member and requires special design to collect, transfer and redistribute forces from one member to another through connection. Jointer concrete, a metal tool used to cut a joint in fresh concrete. Jointer, a metal tool used to cut a joint in fresh concrete. And jointing, process of producing joints in a concrete slab. Joint sealing compound, an impervious material used to fill joints in pavements or structures. An impervious material used to fill joints in pavement or structure. Joint sealing compound is called. And joist is a comparatively narrow beam used in closely spaced arrangements to support floor or roof slab. Kalonite, after a long time, this is again I see kalonite. Kalonite, a commonly clay mineral having general formula Al2Si2O5OH4 and primary constituent of kaolin Al2Si2O5OH4, primary constituent of kaolin. Calibal, apparatus used for indicating consistency of fresh concrete in accordance with ASTM 360 withdrawn now, and apparatus used for determining suitability for load application in controlled low strength material CLSM, controlled low strength material in accordance with ASTM D6024 frame. Now this is Calibal, apparatus used for indicating consistency of fresh concrete. Now kern area within geometric shape in which a compressive force may be applied without tensile stresses, resulting in any of extreme fibers of section. Kern area within a geometric shape in which a compressive force may be applied without tensile stresses, resulting in any of extreme fibers. Keyway, a recess or groove. Keyway, a recess or groove in one lift. Keyway, a recess or groove in one lift or placement of concrete. A recess or groove in one lift or placement of concrete that is filled with concrete in next lift. A recess or groove in one lift or placement of concrete that is filled with concrete of next lift, giving shear strength to joint. A recess or groove in one lift or placement of concrete that is filled with concrete of next lift, giving shear strength to joint. Now kicker, a wood block or board attached to a formwork member in a building frame or formwork to make structure more stable. Kiln, a furnace or oven for drying, sharing for drying, sharing, hardening, backing, calcining, sintering or burning various materials. Kiln is a furnace or you may say a furnace or oven for drying, charring, hardening, backing, drying, charring, hardening, backing, calcining, sintering or burning various materials. Kiln, lacing, horizontal bracing between shoring members. Lagging, heavy sheathing used in underground work, heavy sheathing used in underground work to withstand earth pressure. That is lagging, you may say lagging, heavy sheathing, you may say used in underground work to withstand earth pressure. Latence, a layer of weak material derived from cementitious material, and the aggregate fines either carried by bleeding to surface or to internal cavities of freshly placed mixture. Carried by bleeding to surface or to internal cavities of freshly placed mixture, separated from mixture and deposited on surface or internal cavities during placement of mixture. Lap, length by which one bar or sheet of reinforcement overlaps another one. Lap splice, a connection of reinforcing steel made by lapping ends of bars. Lapping, reinforcing steel, overlapping of reinforcing steel bars, welded wire reinforcement or expanded metal so that there may be continuity of stress in reinforcement when concrete member is subjected to loading. Lateral reinforcement, transverse reinforcement. Transverse reinforcement usually applied to ties, hoops or spirals used to enclose reinforcement in columns or column-like members. Lateral reinforcement, transverse reinforcement usually applied to ties, hoops, and spirals used to enclose reinforcement in column or column-like members. Latex, a dispersion of organic polymer particles in water. Latex, a dispersion of organic polymer. A dispersion of organic polymer particles in water is called latex. LATEX, latex, a dispersion of organic polymer particles in water. And layers, and L beam, beam having cross section like L, a beam having a ledge on one side only. White leaf. Lean concrete, concrete of low cementitious metal content, and ledger, member with a protrusion. Ledger, member with protrusion or protrusions that support other structural members. Ledger, member with a protrusion or protrusions that support other structural members. Length change, increase or decrease in length. Volume change or deformation, so increase or decrease in length. And lever arm, structural member. In a structural member, distance from center of tensile reinforcement to center of action of compression zone. In the structural member, distance from center of tensile reinforcement to center of action of compression zone. Perpendicular distance of a transverse force. Perpendicular distance of a transverse force from a point about which moment is taken. That is, licensed design professional, an engineer or architect who is licensed to practice structural design as defined by statutory requirements of professional licensing laws of a state or jurisdiction. Architect or engineer licensed as described, who is responsible for structural design of a particular project, historically engineer of record. Just for repetition, an engineer or architect who is licensed to practice structural design as defined by statutory requirements of professional licensing laws of state or jurisdiction. Architect or engineer licensed as described, who is responsible for structural design of a particular project, also historically engineer of record. Lift, concrete placed between two consecutive horizontal construction joints, usually consisting of several layers of concrete. Of course, lift joint, the surface at which two successive lifts meet, and lift slab, a method of concrete construction which floor and roof slabs are cast on or at ground level and hoisted into position by jacking. A slab, that is a compound of such construction, so lift slab is a method of concrete construction in which floor and roof slabs are cast on or at ground level and hoisted into position by jacking. A slab, that is component of such construction. Lightweight aggregate, aggregate of low density, such as expanded or sintered clay, shale, slate, diatomaceous shale, perlite, vermiculite or slag, natural pumice, scoria, volcanic cinders, tuff and diatomite, sintered fly ash or industrial cinders. Again, lightweight aggregate, aggregate of low density such as expanded or sintered clay, shale, slate, diatomaceous shale, perlite, vermiculite or slag, natural pumice, scoria, volcanic cinders, tuff and diatomite, sintered fly ash or industrial cinders. Expanded or sintered clay, shale, slate, diatomaceous shale, perlite, vermiculite or slag, natural pumice, scoria, volcanic cinder, tuff and diatomite, sintered fly ash, industrial cinder. Lightweight concrete of substantially lower density than made using aggregate of normal density, consists entirely of lightweight aggregate or a combination of lightweight aggregate and normal density aggregate. Its equilibrium densities are generally between 70, or you can say 1, or leave it at 1120 and 1920 kilogram per meter cube. 1120 and 1920 kilogram per meter cube. Can say is there's also insulating concrete and low density concrete. Can say oxide loosely a general term, specifically calcium oxide used loosely a general term for various chemical and physical forms of quicklime, hydrated lime and hydrated lime. Limestone, sedimentary rock consisting primarily of calcium carbonate. Limit design. Limestone, sedimentary rock consisting primarily of calcium carbonate. Limit design, a method of proportioning reinforced concrete members based on calculation of their strength. Limonite, an iron ore composed of mixture of hydrated ferric oxide. Occasionally used in heavyweight concrete because of its high density and combined water content, which contribute to effectiveness in radiation shielding, a mineral occurring commonly as a constituent of particles of natural aggregate. Limonite, an iron ore composed of a mixture of hydrated ferric oxide, occasionally used in heavyweight concrete. Hydrated ferric oxide occasionally used in heavyweight concrete because of its high density and combined water content, which contribute to its effectiveness in radiation shielding. A mineral occurring commonly as a constituent of particles of altering path of pre-stressing tendon. Method of altering path of pre-stressing tendon in whatever statistical indeterminate pre-stress structure by changing the location of tendon at one or more interior supports without altering its position at end support and without changing basic shape of path between supports. Doesn't change the location of path of pressure. Linear transverse method. Determination of volumetric composition. Determination of volumetric composition of a solid by integrating distance traverse across areas of each component along a line or along regularly spaced lines in one or more planes intersecting a sample of solid frequently employed to determine characteristics of air void. I repeat, a system in hardened concrete by microscopical examination along a series of transverse lines or finally ground sections of concrete, also called Rise-Orzival method. Let me repeat this. Linear transverse method. Linear transverse method is determination of volumetric composition of a solid by integrating a distance traversed across areas of each component along a line or along regularly spaced lines in one or more planes intersecting a sample of solid frequently employed to determine characteristics of air void. System in hardened concrete by microscopical examinations along a series of traverse lines on finely ground section of concrete. Lining sheet, plate or layer of material attached directly to inside face of formwork. Sheet, plate or layer of material attached directly to inside face of formwork to improve or alter surface texture and quality of finished concrete may be called form lining, tunnel lining or sheathing. Lintel, a horizontal supporting member above an opening such as window or door, and live load that is not permanently applied to a structure but is likely to occur during service life of structure, excluding environmental loads meeting specific criteria found in governing building code about load factors. Load balancing technique used in design of pre-stressed concrete members, which amount and path of pre-stressing is selected so that force imposed upon member or structure by pre-stressing counteract or balancing a portion of dead and live loads for which member of structure must be designed. Load factor, a factor by which a service load is multiplied to determine a factored load by which service load is full method. Load bearing wall designed and built to carry superimposed vertical loads in plane or shear loads or both. Long column, a column whose load capacity is limited by buckling rather than strength. Longitudinal bar, longitudinal reinforcement and longitudinal crack, a crack that develops parallel to length of a member. A crack that develops parallel to length of member. Longitudinal joint, a joint parallel to length of structure or pavement. Joints between adjacent segments on a ring with an axis parallel to longitudinal axis of tunnel, also known as radial joint. Longitudinal joint, And longitudinal reinforcement reinforces parallel to length of concrete member of pavement and Los Angeles abrasion test for abrasion resistance of concrete aggregate. Loss of property, loss of pre-stress, reduction in pre-stressing force that results in reduction in pre-stressing force that results from combined effect of slip and anchorage, relaxation of steel stress and frictional loss due to curvature of tendons, effects of elastic shortening, creeps and shrinkage of concrete, loss of pre-stress, reduction in pre-stressing force that results from a combined effect of slip and anchorage, relaxation of steel stress, that is reduction of steel stress, frictional loss due to curvature of tendons and effect of elastic shortening, creep and shrinkage of concrete, and loss ignition, persons of loss in mass of sample ignited to constant mass at a specified temperature is only 900 to 1000 degrees Celsius, a loss on ignition. Percentage loss in mass of a sample ignited to constant mass at a specified temperature 900 to 1000 degrees Celsius. Low alkali cement, a Portland cement that contains a relatively small amount of sodium, potassium or both. A small amount of sodium, potassium, both. That's ASTM C150 and C150M. So loss of ignition, you can say percentage loss in mass of sample ignited to constant mass at a temperature of 900 to 1000 degrees Celsius, and low alkali cement, and we say Portland cement, that contains a relatively small amount of sodium, potassium or both. A Portland cement containing not more than 0.6% Na2O equivalent, that is Na2O plus 0.658% K2O. Low density concrete having an overdry density concrete having an overdry density of less than 800 kg per cubic meter for insulating concrete, and lightweight concrete is a form concrete. You can say low heat cement, a Portland cement for use when low heat hydration is desired. Refer to ASTM C150, C150M type 4 cement. And low lift grouting, a technique of masonry wall construction in which wall sections are built to a height of not more than 1.7 meters before cells of masonry united are filled with grout. Low lift grouting, low pressure steam curing, atmospheric pressure steam curing, and low strength materials, and same way machine based grout that's used in space between plates and machinery, and underlying foundations, and that's expected to that's low strength material. Now we can say low strength materials is, I can say versus low lift grouting, a technique based on masonry walls. So we can up to 1.7, then low pressure steam curing, atmospheric pressure steam curing, and low strength materials. Machine based grouting, grout that's used in space between plates of machinery and underlying foundation, and that's expected to maintain complete contact with base and to maintain uniform support. And macro fiber, a fiber with equivalent diameter greater than, you can say, 0.3 millimeter for use in concrete. A fiber with a equivalent diameter greater than whatever this 0.3 mm for use in concrete. And macroscopic is visible to naked eye. Macroscopic, I'll go upstairs just for 5 minutes, come back, and this net, and I can say meanwhile magnetite, we are now in M, Magnetite, a mineral, ferrous ferric oxide, a magnetite. What's battery status? It's 88% available. Magnetite, a mineral, ferrous ferric oxide, FeO, Fe2O3, principal constituent of magnetic black iron ore. Magnetite, FeO, Fe2O3, principal constituent of magnetic black iron ore, with a density of approximately 5.2 G per cc and Mohs hardness of approximately 6, that is used as an aggregate in high density concrete. There was limonite we talked, now magnetite. Manufacture and manufactured sand. Map cracking. Intersecting cracks. Map cracking is intersecting cracks that extend below surface of hardened concrete. Intersecting cracks that extend below surface of hardened concrete that vary in width from fine and barely visible to open and well defined, called pattern cracking. Map cracking is intersecting cracks that extend below surface of hardened concrete that vary in width from fine and barely visible to open and well defined, called pattern cracking. Marble, a metamorphic rock. Marble, a metamorphic rock composed essentially of recrystallized calcite, dolomite, or both. Mason is the artisan who builds with concrete masonry unit, bricks, stone, and tile, a name sometimes given to concrete finisher. Masonry construction composed of shaped or molded units, usually small enough to be handled by one person, and composed of stone, ceramic, brick or tile, concrete, glass, adobe, or likewise. Masonry cement, a hydraulic cement used for masonry and plastering construction, containing one or more following materials: Portland cement, Portland pozzolana cement, natural cement, slag cement, hydraulic hydrated lime, and in addition usually contains one or more materials such as hydrated lime, limestone, chalk, calcareous shells, etc., talc, slag, or clay as prepared for this purpose. Let me go and come back better, just for 5 minutes or better in that case. Humidity. Okay, let's move further. We were somewhere here on this. Yes. Masonry cement, as I said, which we discussed, again I repeat, it's important one. Hydraulic cement used for masonry and plastering construction, containing one of the following materials: the Portland cement, Portland pozzolana cement, natural gas cement, slag cement, or hydraulic hydrated lime. In addition, usually contains one or more materials such as hydrated lime, limestone chalk, calcareous shell, talc, slag, or clay, as prepared for this purpose. Masonry grout is a mixture of hydraulic cement aggregate, water, and possibly other materials used for filling designated spaces in masonry construction. Masonry lift, height to which masonry is laid between period of grouting. Mass is physical property of matter that causes it to have weight in a gravitational field. Mass is physical property of matter that causes it to have weight in a gravitational field, quantity of matter in a body. Mass concrete, volume of structural concrete in which a combination of dimensions of member being cast, boundary conditions, characteristics of concrete mixture, and ambient conditions can lead to undesirable thermal stresses, cracking, deleterious chemical reactions, or reduction in long-term strength as a result of elevated concrete temperature due to heat from hydration. I repeat, mass concrete or massive concrete, in fact we should say, whatever volume of structural concrete in which a combination of dimensions of member being cast, boundary conditions, characteristics of concrete mixture, ambient conditions can lead to undesirable thermal stresses, cracking, deleterious chemical reactions, or reduction in long-term strength as a result of elevated concrete temperature due to heat from hydration. Mat, assembly of steel reinforcement composed of two or more layers of bars placed at angles to each other and secured together either by welding or tying. A thin layer of randomly oriented chopped filaments, short fibers, or long random filaments loosely held together with a binder and used as reinforcement for a fiber reinforced polymer composite material. I define mat again: assembly of steel reinforcement composed of two or more layers of bars placed at angles to each other and secured together either by welding or tying a thin layer of randomly oriented chopped filament, short fibers without a carrier fabric, or long random filaments loosely held together with a binder and used as reinforcement for a fiber reinforced polymer composite material. Mat foundation consisting of continuous concrete slab. Mat foundation consisting of continuous concrete slab extending in both directions, that is usually reinforced and supported matrix cement paste in which fine aggregate particles in mortar are embedded, mortar in which coarse aggregate particles in concrete are embedded, resin of binders that hold fibers in fiber reinforced polymer together, transfer loads to fibers and protect them against environmental attack and damage due to handling. So matrix in the cement paste in which fine aggregates particles in mortar are embedded, mortar in which coarse aggregate particles in concrete are embedded, and resin of binders that hold fibers in fiber reinforced polymer together, transfer load to fibers and protect them against environmental attack and damage due to handling. And maturity factor that is a function of age of concrete, hours or days multiplied by difference between mean temperature of concrete in degrees during curing and datum, temperature below which hydration stops, or called temperature time factor, factor that the function of age of concrete multiplied by difference between mean temperature of heavy concrete during curing and datum temperature, factorless function of age of concrete multiplied by difference between mean temperature of concrete during curing, and maximum size of aggregate in specifications for an in description of aggregate smallest sieve opening through which entire amount of aggregate is required to pass. Mean stress average of maximum minimum stress in one cycle of fluctuating load. Then we come to mechanical anchorage. Any mechanical device capable of developing specified yield strength of reinforcement without damage to concrete. Mechanical device, that's mechanical anchorage, mechanical device capable of developing specified yield strength of reinforcement without damaging concrete. Mechanical bond, interlock created when a fresh cementitious mixture is placed and hardens to conform to surface texture of existing solid material. Mechanical bond, interlock created when a fresh cementitious mixture is placed and hardens to conform to surface texture of existing solid material. Mechanical connection, complete assembly of an end bearing sleeve, a coupler or coupling sleeve, and possible additional intervening material or other components to affect connection of reinforcing bars, and mechanical lapse life. So this is where we are reached now, and we can say mechanical connection, mechanical lapse lies. Please. Mechanical connection we have defined for mechanical lapse lies. Complete assembly of a coupling sleeve. Complete assembly of a coupling sleeve device and additional components configured to accomplish positive splicing of overlapping reinforcing bars. Megascopic, macroscopic, and melilite. A group of minerals ranging from calcium magnesium silicate, ackermanite to calcium aluminate silicate, galenite, that occur as crystals in blast furnace slag. That is melilite. Group of minerals ranging from calcium magnesium silicate, ackermanite to calcium aluminate silicate, galenite, that occur as crystals in blast furnace slag. Melt, molten portion of raw material mass during burning of cement clinker, firing of lightweight aggregates, or expanding of blast furnace slags. Melt. Membrane curing, a process that involves application of liquid membrane. Membrane curing, a process that involves application of liquid membrane forming compound or covering with a protective sheet material, both of which function as a barrier to restrict evaporation of mixing water from concrete surface. Membrane theory. Theory of design for thin shells. Theory of design for thin shells based on premise that shell cannot resist bending because it deflects. Only stresses that exist, therefore, in any section are shear stress and direct compression or tension. Membrane theory. Theory of design of thin shells based on premise that a shell cannot resist bending because it deflects. Only stresses that exist, therefore, in any section are shear stress and direct compression stress. Now, this is page 43. I think we have gone a good way today, and we shall be continuously continue ourselves on this without any problems in future. And also we have to think about this, what I said here in this talk about quality, and this is quality in Bharat, India. That's what I said. And also this page 43, we can say next time. With this, I think we should pass a thanks to all of you, all you people, exactly in a way we have gone through certain requirements. I hope maybe this very much technical talk, it would continue. Still more pages are there, and I'd like to share with you this information, though you may have this, but people are not interested in all this. But for example, we find a term that's internal curing, or we can say reservoir curing, and also we find so many other terms which are really very useful. Should we consider our way how to do it? Maybe we don't apply that here, but interesting is knowledge. As I said, we talked about various types of curings: radiation curing, steam curing, or you can say power, you can say electrical curing. Same way here is reservoir curing or internal curing. All these are very interesting topics, so we can, if we have more literature on them, we can continue to talk about them. There's a good way to learn more and more, and we can say that's what's required. So thank you very much. I think we should now go away.